memed, scene culture. Everybody has the picture of little Mikey Musumeci versus giant Houmine, and like right here, this is the picture everybody has. This is the jiu-jitsu picture right now of 2020. I mean, take it. They're doing so many things with it. The little guy versus the big guy, the absolute battle, and like this is definitely the jiu-jitsu match of the year. This is the European 2020s, and it's just, it is literally a master class in framing.
Musumeci guard is almost impossible to pass, right?
You see Musumeci wants those grips on those sleeves. He wants to make sure he has something connected to him.
But it's hard to...
And let's take a look at what Musumeci is doing to avoid the pressure. And you see Houmine having to rip that grip out, because Mikey's grabbing those sleeves and he's pushing his palms in, right? And you see the foot coming over and he's stepping on the inside. He's just creating every little frame possible. Think about it, his palm is here, but his hand is out. Same thing over here, and this is to create more frames. So effectively right now, Mikey I think has 3 and at any time possibly 4 frames against Houmine.
It's not only about, that's what you
see that you can see them playing on that left side in the background there. That's where the control. That's where Houmine's looking for his control. Look how Mikey slipped his foot in there, stepping on Houmine. I mean, the reality is he can't let Houmine's hips come over him. Once that starts happening, then Mikey's bearing Houmine's weight, and it's going to be way too much to bear for any length of period of time. Notice how Mikey is sliding away from Houmine as he comes forward. Mikey slides back. Obviously, he can't close that guard up, so he kept the knee in the shoulder.
To take the back,
He's constantly trying to track the hands, right? So, because what does he not want to do? He doesn't want to give Houmine the hands to be able to have reckless abandon, like just kind of grab the leg, shove it to the side. He has to mitigate that power that Houmine has, that pressure. Another thing that's really important, notice how Musumeci's shoulders have not touched the floor in the slightest. He has done such a really good job of keeping an angle, of keeping a rocking chair on his back. And what that's doing is, as Houmine's putting pressure, you see Mikey sliding, spinning out, turning, and all this is just a natural reaction as to what's happening because of the proper postures and framework that Mikey has.
Which
Again, we talk about the frames, right? Having the grips, pushing the palms in. You see those elbows down, palms out. Here he gives a cross collar grip. Foot on Houmine, other foot's also on him. You see, that's the angle I'm talking about, right? So he's able to make those angles because he's keeping a good posture. His core is engaged. He's got a nice concave to his stomach, and that is the posture you want on the bottom. On top, it's actually usually the opposite, always. But on the bottom, especially when in a guard, on your back, you want to keep that curvature. Here we go. I'm looking for a push sweep here, and you need just so long. Mikey coming into that potential omoplata range. So he actually gets an attack off here. He's not just defending. He's not just framing. He gets the foot on the leg. He's pulling the hand. He has the cross collar grip right here. Right hand, leg, cross collar grip. He's trying to extend him. Houmine just a beast of a human being. So then once he notices he fails it, he stuffs the hand next to the hip. And he's looking to kind of come into an omoplata range. But Houmine, again, now this is the big guy thing. Houmine does the smart thing. He puts his head right over Mikey's head. And that puts the pressure of Houmine's core, like his whole chest and core area, right over Mikey. And you see, it sticks him. Like, it really does a beautiful job of gluing him into place. And Mikey's only choice is there to recover that full guard. Again, just beautiful work of frame, collar, sleeve, foot on the. Even this foot here is a frame, and even though it's like on the shoulder there, look, he brings it out again. There we go, stepping back on him. Houmine trying to come through that gap there. Notice here too, Mikey can't close his guard, so what's he doing? He's pinching those knees here. Again, just keeping Houmine at bay, right? Has that knee shield, replaces the knee shield, that knee frame with the foot frame. Why replace a knee frame with the foot frame, you ask? because then they have to get past the foot and the knee. If you just frame with your knees for too long, eventually, once they get past the knee, now they're passing your hip line. You put your foot back in play, now you gotta get past the foot, then the knee, and then the hip line again. So always looking to recover there. I mean, obviously, Mikey a little bit flexible there. We see that knee coming in for a little bit of help in the frame, but realistically, that wasn't what really helped him in the frame there, because Houmine's so much pressure. All right, so Mikey has that foot on his there. You see him trying to like double up on that shoulder. He's got the fist in the collar there. He's trying to put the hand there as well. Eventually, Houmine reaches around and he breaks down the frame of the leg. Now you see Mikey trying to do a stiff arm. Again, it works for football players. Running at each other in full gear, it works for us. All right, so he gets a stiff arm on that hip. He's just trying to use it to clear. There we go. Now he pushes away a little bit, makes some space for his leg to get free. Back into the closed guard area, right? Obviously, he can't close his guard, but he puts the heel towards the hip, kind of blocks the angle a bit off. And again, Mikey's shoulders still off the floor. And the thing is, if Houmine had put Mikey's shoulders on the floor, that means Mikey's hips would come up because he's that rocking chair position, right? He's like this. He's like that curve, right? So Mikey's always in this curved position. He's always able to spin back and forth. There we go, and you can see Houmine getting frustrated right there. Right, frustrated with the little man. And that's just, honestly, that's a beautiful aspect of Jiu-Jitsu. It's just Mikey doing it, literally epitomizing what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is all about. And the little guy taking on the big guy. I mean, and this has to be his strategy. His strategy has to be, I need to keep him off me. I need to keep my frames. Right, and look for my few moments of attack. So we see him, he went for a push sweep. It wasn't successful, but he has to wait for those moments to kind of avail themselves. And here we see Mikey looking for that cross sleeve grip. He wanted to get behind, possibly start scooting behind Houmine. There we go, going back to it. Like that 2-on-1 grip, but Houmine just wisely pulls the shoulder back, gets that arm clear. Doesn't allow Mikey to maintain a cross sleeve grip from the bottom, which is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated grips in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the cross sleeve grip from the bottom. There you go, foot on the bicep. Again, looking for some collar control. Houmine forced to break it. Get in those sleeves. Look, you see how he's like pushing his palms into them. Right, he's not just squeezing; he's pushing the palms in. Right, that's because if you squeeze and pull, you're always you're using your forearms too much. You want to grab your grips and kind of push your palms into them, and it's part of the framework there. Even look at like right here. Hold on, I think there's a better angle right there. See how Mikey's turning the hand out when he makes the grip? That's a big key. Right, it's slight, but it's really important. See, he's doing it right there too. Right, again, he's turning that wrist out. Very nice work. Leg comes over again. We talked about the frames he's building. Houmine trying to get a knee through. Mikey having a slide just a little bit away. Yo, Bessimir, what's up, brother? Here's a giant. I mean, it's literally huge. Again, love the framework here. Again, foot in the bicep, going to the collar work, again, curving the wrist. Nice frame in the foot and the bicep, especially if someone starts grabbing the pant legs. You keep your foot in the bicep, it helps. Right, so here Houmine got past the foot. You see Mikey bend the knee into the range. Houmine looking to come up, looking to bury him. Let's look at what happened to him. Watch how he has the collar, pushes it down. He's going to swim that leg underneath him. And Mikey's immediately going to look to grab the leg. He looks to frame out that leg, frame out the hip again. Stiff arms. Really the leg, you want to have like kind of the armpit. You definitely don't want to be on the hip. That's a lot of hip coming at you, right? Way too heavy. Mikey's still going to, look how he brought in that top knee. Now Houmine's going to have to potentially think about jumping to the other side. But Mikey obviously has a speed advantage. Beautiful knee frame there on the top leg. And Houmine snuck in that other leg almost for like a half guard. Getting squashed. Houmine, again, Houmine just doing a good job. Doing the big guy. Putting the body right over Mikey. Kind of squashing him down. Look at Mike. Because of Mikey's curve, though, as he came, Houmine's head went too far over to the side. So that allowed Mikey to rocking chair position, right, which allows him to start getting his angles, Right, again, if Mikey had been flat, Houmine would have passed. But because Mikey's keeping that curvature in his back, so as like you see, so as Houmine puts that weight on his shoulders, his hips come up, and then the inverse reaction is always happening. I think the reason you're getting pinned and you can't move, it's like you see Mikey right here is laying flat, right? Again, he's exhausted. He's been dealing with this guy for a while. It's that rocking chair position. If you're getting pinned and your legs are involved, right, and you're in a guard, I'm not saying like if you're in side control, you're in mount, different story, right? But if you still have a guard, a half guard, a butterfly, a de la riva, any type of spider, anything, right? I think a lot of the times it's because people are just letting their back fall flat to the ground like you see Mikey here. But watch, once it engages, he's going to pick up those shoulders, and there you go. See his shoulders immediately coming up off the ground. You want as little surface area of you on the ground as possible.
He feels comfortable on the most weirdest positions. It's incredible. How flexible.
And again, look, grabs the sleeve, puts the leg over, just doing a good job of keeping framework on, feet on the biceps, foot on the hips, foot on the shoulder. Again, when he gets his grips, he's not tensing here. He's curving his hands back. It helps push the palm into the person. Helps with framework, right? It adds 2 more frames instead of a pull.
And now Mike has to be a little bit more threatening more, you know, to step an advantage or something, because so
at least if not total inversions are not always necessary in my opinion. It does help though. Honestly, the bolo inversion, it can be used defensively, offensively. Originally it was always defensive, and then the Mendes brothers came out boloing to the back and it became much more offensive. But yeah, I think just the ability to be on the shoulders and have that hip up is important though, right? Kind of like to be in that weird almost stack, and then you kind of have to drive their head over you so you're not actually getting stacked on your neck. Here's that rocking chair position. See how Mike's able to swim in, swim out, because he's keeping the shoulders and hips off the floor. You see Houmine really digging his hips into the ground. Mikey puts that leg in there. He's looking to just come over. But right now, Mikey's shoulders are being pinned. He's got to pick up his hips to defend. Right, again, if shoulders are pinned, hips have to come up. Yeah, you got to keep those shoulder blades up. But if they're on the ground, that means your hips come up. Think about it. If you have a closed guard and your shoulders on the ground, that means you should be picking your hips up. Why? Because they can't punch you in the face. Right? Just think of a basic self-defense. It also works for a lot of other aspects of jiu-jitsu. Now, at the same time, if someone's pushing your hip down, you pick up your shoulders. Why? Because now you can sit up. Because they're pushing your hips down. Now you can start reaching for the head, start breaking them down. They go back to pushing your shoulders down. That means your hips can come back up again. Right? So you're always going to have this inverse reaction. The only position in jiu-jitsu that controls the shoulders and the hips at the same time is the back. Even the mount, you sit on the hips, you get it up high. Now you're sitting on the chest and shoulders.
And maybe go around him, you know. We say in Brazil.
Cool, best man. I'm glad to help you. I really am. Happy to help you. And happy holidays, man. Hope all is well. And this for me, like I'm talking about standout, like this for me is the standout match in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu this year. I think this was a huge thing, and this was early on the year, April 27th, and I just think this was something truly special that we got to see and witness. I mean, after this, Musumeci loses to Muhammad Ali, and again, Muhammad, not just a big dude, also very explosive, but Mikey had him in omoplata range, had him in a little trouble. I love there's an interview with him. He's like, yo, he's quick, right? Another example of Mikey just having great run work. I remember Gordon Ryan talking about him training with Musumeci. And he said as long as he continued to just try to pass and nothing else, he could not pass Mikey's guard. Until he started throwing in leg lock attacks and Mikey had to start worrying about his feet a little bit more. Then he was able to pass his guard. But when there was no attack and it was just attempting the guard pass, he said it was nearly impossible. His framework is just so good. It's so tight. And everything is a frame. And here, look, he's squashing. Look, he still has his shoulder off the floor, still has the other shoulder. And it was because Houmine was pinning the hip with his knee. Again, you see that wrist flare out, right? He's pushing it in, kind of pulling it back. Even the other hand here, that's kind of pulling. When he pulls, he just arches the wrist back. You see him trying to push in there. Houmine gets a negative point because he's not trying to pass anymore. And here he's just squashing Mikey's face, framing him out.
drawing through. And,
See, again, there's those hips up, shoulders to the floor, hips are up. Doesn't matter if you can't even close the guard. Still, the fundamental idea has to stay the same. If he let his hips fall down, Houmine would be able to just drive right over those legs. But because he's even just keeping the hips up, the quads are blocking.
He's like crushing Musumeci's face. There's no choke there at all. That's a little bit uncomfortable. That's 9 seconds.
You know what? And it's one of those understandable. I like the idea of you can escape everything. You don't have to worry about it. I mean, that's a big Jeff Glover thing. He's like, yeah, take my back. I got my defenses, right? At the same time, it's like, and that's why, honestly, like for me, all my friends were big. Like every one of them was a big dude. I was always playing the guard. I am average height, but all my friends were like 6 and change, 200 and change pounds. Just every one of them was big. I was forced to play the guard. And the reality is, I think it was the best thing for me. Because when I swept to the top, what was I worried about? Being swept back to the bottom. That's where I played. So as I got through my jiu-jitsu, as I went through jiu-jitsu and I was starting to attack more, starting to sweep more, starting to pass more, I didn't have to worry about being trapped on the bottom. I already knew how to deal with that. That was my game. And that's a big mental hump that people have, especially when coming into jiu-jitsu, is that fear of being trapped on the bottom. So once you get over that fear, you don't have to worry about it. You get to play. You get to enjoy every aspect of it, right? So once you have gotten rid of the fear of being on the bottom, gotten rid of all the fear, and Mikey Musumeci again winning, Houmine losing, having 2 negatives because of passivity. And honestly, I agree with, and if anything, even it came down to judge's decision, I think Mikey Musumeci had really embolized what Brazilian